Remington, do you have your legal pad?
I got it. It's ready to rock and roll.
Then we are ready for Listen to This Bull Live. See that disclaimer, Remington? Are you proud?
That looks great. It looks great. It's
I'm
official.
pretty excited about it. Yeah.
Matt, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Let me introduce the show real quick before you ask me too many platitudes.
Yep.
Hang on. I have to take a sip of this really girly drink real quick.
I want to make sure everybody can see what cup I'm drinking out of.
Oh, nice. Braves. Welcome to the Listen to This Bull live stream podcast live show. I'm Matt Mulholland. That's Remington Huggins. And we talk about anything and everything that has to do with bullshit in the insurance world. We will answer your questions. They could be any weird question that you would like. Exactly how long is Remington's beard? And are those holes in it? Or is it just colored? Like, does his beard hairs nude color? Is that a thing? That's a question I want to have answered now. In order to ask us questions, you put a comment in the system and we will read it. Our guest tonight was Holly Soffer, who we're going to have on in 2 weeks from today. Now, she got pretty ill and had to bow out and apologize profusely while hacking up a lot. So I let her off the hook, mostly because of the hacking part. But she's not going to be on. So if you came to watch Holly Soffer, unfortunately, you can continue to watch and look at our ugly faces and ask us weird questions. I'm okay with that. Or you could just leave and come back in 2 weeks. Yeah, it's up to you. But if you'd like to join us, we're going to talk about random things, and the conversation will be driven by our audience. So put comments in, ask questions. I'm a public adjuster. Run this, listen to this bull thing. I also am the dean of the National Claims Institute. That guy is an attorney for property losses in Georgia and Florida, and probably does things with co-counsel in other states. He's pretty smart, even though he's got that weird baby face thing going on. God, you look extra smooth today. I don't know what it is.
Do I? Maybe it's
Yeah.
the hair, man. The hairs might be a little shorter, something like that.
Did you do like a masking recently, like a face mask? The mud shit?
I wish, man. I wish.
Yeah.
You know.
You're into that kind of thing. I knew it. You should be drinking this weird girly beer. Post some stuff in the comments. I'm also going to pop in there a link. If you have a good question and you'd like to join us on the show and ask your question live, you can click on that link. It'll put you in the wings, and I possibly might pull you on the show. Remington might do the same. So make sure that you are commenting. Otherwise, this show gets really boring, and then we drone on about stuff.
Don't be scared. Do not be scared, folks, at all. Let's start rolling with
Our very first question. When can I attend a class by Remington at NCI?
Well, hey, Matt, if you were there, what, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago?
We did have a class. Look, National Claims Institute is a different company from Listen to This Bull, just to make that clear, because we're kind of blurring the lines here. Remington and I are both partners in that. And he was teaching a class of attorneys. We had a class for attorneys, public adjusting for attorneys. And he was there teaching a class on that. And you were there, Peterson, and you happen to be in New Smyrna Beach, and you're an attorney. I mean, you could easily have just been a part of that class.
I didn't see him.
Just saying, you weren't there. So,
and I'm also flying down to New Smyrna in about 2 weeks. I think it's February 7th.
Right. Yeah, you're coming down for the Public Adjuster 101 class.
Absolutely.
Our very first time that we're teaching public adjusters how to be public adjusters. It'll be fun.
There you go.
What up, Peep?
Stokes. Where does Stokes
say?
Where's he a public adjuster in? What state?
I had an email from him earlier. Well, I don't remember. Don't know. He'll have to answer. When you say these are my peeps, but you're talking about only one of them, do you say He's my peep. Do you keep it singular, or does it lose all meaning when it's not plural?
I think if it's one person, you just gotta say, hey, that's my dude.
Yeah, you don't say peep,
Guy.
right? That's my
Yeah.
dude.
Or if it's a girl, that's my girl. But
Mhm.
you don't say peep. That's my peep. I wouldn't talk to that person anymore. I don't think. I think I'd be done with them.
I think that's something that I would say, and we would have one of those weird conversations that we've had in the past again.
uh,
Looking forward to the video and getting to the classes this year. Yeah, Evan. Me too. What video are you talking about, though?
There's a lot of videos out there, Matt.
I have a lot of videos. I don't know.
A lot of videos out there.
Sorry I missed you, man. I'll catch you next time. You should be sorry. I mean, you were right there.
Well, I'll get you.
But,
I'll get you, Matt. Next time I'm in, I think 2 weeks. So I'll see you then.
I think when you have one too many T's as a Matt or a Matthew, you don't care as much about other people's schedules automatically. I think that's the key.
There's a lot of data points that go into that, huh, Matt?
Yeah, a little bit. Any good recommendations for PAs in the Indianapolis area? Thanks for all the amazing content. Indianapolis is in Minnesota. Indianapolis. Yeah, it's Minnesota, right? I suck at geography. All right. I have to have some flaws.
Are you thinking of Minneapolis?
Minneapolis, that is what I'm thinking. So where's Indianapolis? Is it in Indiana?
Yes, that is correct.
That makes more sense. I really suck at geography.
Hey, Eric, I specifically off the top of my head, I do have a PA firm that I've worked with before, and they're reputable, and I know that they have an office in Indiana. So what I'll do is, just so I'm not acting like I don't know, I guess being a salesman at some point or whatever, trying to advertise for them, I will send you a direct message with the contact. How's that sound, bud?
Perfect. Let me post that link to the show real quick, just so that it's in the comments like I said it would be. It's right there. All right. So Soaks are in Kansas City. I think that's what KC stands for. I only know that because of football.
For some reason, I was thinking Texas, just like Stokes. I don't know. It's close.
Different Stokes for different folks. That's the issue, though.
Kansas City. There you go. Now, is that in Kansas or is that in Missouri? Because that always confuses. Don't ask Matt that question. They'll get him really.
There's no way to know. There's no way to know. How would you know? The video is this live stream. That's what he's saying. Peterson is very true. Yeah, the extra T makes arrogance and other things, and pure dickishness is all I want to say.
I don't know. I don't have enough facts to make a determination on that. Hey, Eric, I'll take care of you, man. Like I said, I know a great PA firm that has an office in Indiana there. So I'll send that your way right when we get done with the show.
That's perfect. All right. Put that class NCI online and make that bread. We'll get more people to attend. I am not young enough to know. I guess I am, because I do know bread means money for you older than me folks. Do they still say it now is the real question. I should ask my kids if bread is still slang for moolah, cash, shit like that. Do you know? You're younger than me.
I mean, get that bread. I think that's pretty. I think people in the 20s use that as well, man.
In the 20s?
Yeah.
Really? Was that during Prohibition and things? Were they talking about alcohol because it's liquid bread?
I think they were talking about insurance proceeds.
That's what they were talking about. They were trying to describe deductibles and shit.
I mean, I think if you go up to a 20-year-old kid and ask him, "Let's go get that bread," what does that mean? I'm fairly confident he's going to know exactly what we're talking about.
Well, Stokes guy says that he's 52, so it must be really old, that comment.
Well, we know 50s is the new 30s.
Yeah,
so
that's true. That makes me like in my teenage years.
Right.
100%. I'm 38. David Summerly. Do you know David Summerly?
I know that name. I know we've had some conversations here.
Yeah, I mean, dude is super nice, man. I've the kindest person ever.
Did you meet him at NCI or somewhere else?
I met him at a conference. He was at TJ Ware's rental, and I was invited over, and we had some shrimp and stuff that his kids cooked. They did a decent job, actually, kids cooking shrimp. And I met David, and fast friends. Very nice guy.
There you
Very
go.
nice. Here's a good question. We have a siding claim, ongoing first stages. There is asbestos siding on the home. Insurance says we're not required to remove it to install siding.
Okay, guys.
Not.
I just want to throw this out here. This is a great question for Matt. This is a fantastic question for Matt. We've made a video where we went inside of insured's house. Specifically, it's not the siding, it was the inside and the drywall and so forth. But Matt's got some opinions about this for sure. So I'll let you take it, Matt.
So I need more information to really qualify this. James, are you able to jump on? I can post the link in the comments again and just have you come on. That way I can ask you back and forth some questions on this. Because my immediate reaction was to think that they're asking you to install siding on top of siding, which now that I'm reading that a second time, there must be some damage to it to go along with it. All right, so there's a link. Here it is in StreamYard. Copy paste that link in. You'll be in the wings, and then I'll pull you back on and we'll start talking about that.
If for some reason James can't hop on in the next 5 minutes or so,
we'll come back to that.
I want to circle back around that, and I want your two different answers given the two different fact patterns or information. Sound good?
Oh, he's already there.
Good deal.
I know this guy.
Fact patterns.
I know this guy. We're probably gonna be talking to each other for the next 2 hours.
Good deal.
3 hours. I know this guy.
Fact patterns.
I know this guy. We're probably gonna be talking to each other for the next 2 hours.
I think you get some feedback, James.
There is. 1 second. There we go.
Awesome.
Can you still hear us?
Yeah, I got you now. Yeah, I know. Well, I figured you said if I don't ask some questions, the show is going to be boring. So I figured I'll kick one off. I got more.
That's a great question. All right. So what's actually happened? Is there damage to the siding?
So just to be clear here, this is for our other sales guy. He's busy and is not able to ask it. And I figure this is kind of an important situation. I want to make sure we hammer down on it right. So from my understanding, we went out, we got the full approval finally for the whole home, but they are suggesting that we install the vinyl siding over the top. I'm telling him, that's not going to be a good play, due to the fact that that's a hazardous material. And I'm just wondering, how I know I need to approach it with documents and what we need to do on how we need to combat that. And so I need your input.
I think it's a really simple answer. Honestly, you could go to a building official and get them to say that you can't do this. But just like roofing materials, you cannot install another layer of roofing or siding on top of an asbestos containing siding. It's not allowed. So roofing has it under Chapter 9, siding, and I don't know what chapter that is, siding section. It's fairly clear. You can get a building official and make that comment. There's only certain substrates that you can add additional layers to on an exterior, and that just isn't a suitable substrate to add an additional layer. So honestly, that should be a fairly easy fix on that claim. I was hoping for a different answer because that becomes way too easy of a statement, way too easy to just pull you on for. So I'm gonna give the other scenario. Let's say you've got some damage, but not damage on all the sides. And they're saying you can replace just this side, or they're saying you can replace individual parts of the siding that are damaged. You don't have to remove the rest. So from an interior perspective, you're looking at drywall, you'd have to replace all the manipulated areas, cutting it back in a certain way. It'd have to be done under containment by specific people that are licensed or certified to do so. And it could end up being much more expensive to try to repair drywall that has asbestos in it, because it'd have to be all done under containment with a lot of different shit going on. It'd be more expensive, but it could technically be done. But on the exterior, it's a little bit easier to remove some things. Some of the siding and roofing materials for asbestos, they're not considered friable, but you can't just cut them either. You would have to have materials that are compatible with each other. And if you have to detach any of it to install something else, you can't reinstall it. So you'd end up having an abatement contractor detaching to get to whatever the material is. Maybe you have to start from the top and detach because it's all hidden fastener systems or something along those lines. But
Right.
once you're detaching all of that, you can't just put it back on. And then you have to have a compatible siding to go along with it. So they're wanting you to go to vinyl siding or something, which is a ridiculous thing. From a like kind of quality standpoint, Remington, what's the difference you think between asbestos siding and vinyl?
I think we got a good argument with that. And I can tell you this, looking at all the procedures and manuals and guidelines for insurance companies, when I get to subpoena that information, they say for you not to do that. They say it's strictly black and white in the actual manuals themselves. So
what would you say is a comparable product to the asbestos? What would you consider a comparable product?
Cementitious siding of some kind is probably more likely to be comparable. For roofing materials, I often argue slate or at least cement tile, but it depends on the longevity, and that's really where the issue lies. So longevity asbestos tile and asbestos siding is much longer than traditional cementitious siding, such as hardy plank or something along those lines. You're not going to get the same longevity out of it.
So are we in an identification report then of this as well?
You could, but you might not get it identified. In general, they last 50 years or so. So you'd have to find siding that is designed to last that long. It could even be longer. I've been on asbestos tile roofs that are 75 years old.
Okay.
So I would imagine siding has the same longevity. I know roofs better than the siding side. But finding a suitable material with the same lifespan is going to be difficult on the siding end, unless you're looking at an aluminum siding. But it's nothing like it. So cementitious siding is going to be the most similar in appearance and possibly similar in construction. But I don't know. That'd be a tough one to do.
And if anybody has any opinions on that as well, please leave a
yeah.
comment. I would love to know as well.
And then lastly, I mean, should I be arguing at some point in there that the fact that it is a hazardous material, it's going to require a specialty, contractor or professional to remove that, and so on and so forth. And
Well,
okay.
there is some abatement that's required on the exterior. It's not as strict as interior. But it still does require, for most states anyway, it does require someone that is trained or certified to do that. OSHA is going to require some different things as well. If it's commercial related, it's going to fall under some NESHAP rules. If it's residential, if it's a residence where someone is working their business in that residence, then it would still qualify as commercial as far as the EPA is concerned, and have some fun with those things. If they are running a business, you want to know, because the NESHAP rules are much more strict, and you might have to actually send them a design for how you're going to remove it and things and get that approved beforehand. NESHAP rules are very strict, but they can also be your friend when you're dealing with an insurance carrier, because it's so strict. It's very clear what the guidelines require.
Hey, Matt, let me ask you a question, and this might help James out too. What is the fastest way to get a code enforcement officer out at the property to do an inspection and say, no, this is the proper way to perform this repair or replacement?
All you got to do is set the house on fire. They'll come out like instant.
Well, they'll be like the fifth person out. You're going to have the fire trucks, the marshal, and then they come. But I'm talking, is it really picking up the phone and just asking somebody to come out? Is it as simple as that?
So there's, if you're dealing with regulated materials, which anything with asbestos or lead or something along those lines, you want to, if it's a residence, you'd want to call the state's Environmental Protection Division. It's usually EPD instead of EPA, but it could be different for each state and what they call themselves. But if you call them, they'll have someone that deals with the requirements for that particular type of material. So they'll have someone that's there for asbestos. They'll have someone on staff or other things. You can ask them all kinds of questions, and each state's going to apply this differently. If it's OSHA that you're trying to get out involved, then OSHA will not do something preliminarily. There would have to be a violation that occurs, and then they'll get involved.
Right.
They won't get involved and say, well, for example, let's say a carrier writes an estimate and it's going to violate OSHA's guidelines if you were actually perform it that way. OSHA won't get involved until someone actually performs it wrong.
Right.
But the EPD will make recommendations on whether or not that is allowed or not, and it might be able to give you documentation from your state's environmental division to say whether or not that's allowed to do it this way or not. You can get an industrial hygienist involved, and they could set a protocol on exactly what it takes step by step on what it is that's required to be done. And I think that that's probably the best option in most cases, just because you can hire them, get a report, and send that to the carrier. But if you've already got a lot of this underway, the exterior stuff is a lot simpler. When you're dealing with interiors, you almost definitely need an industrial hygienist. But if you're dealing with an exterior, you're just talking about the removal in a safe way. As long as they're not trying to install new materials intermixed or interwoven with the asbestos containing materials, you probably won't need an industrial hygienist. But that is a good point. Now that I've said that, for your argument with the siding, you could definitely bring an industrial hygienist into, if the building official doesn't want to get involved. Industrial hygienist would, or EPD would.
That was my first thought. If you get the building,
why didn't you say anything? Because they like 10 minutes to get to that.
I knew that this was your type of question, man. I let you have it. You know,
there's a lot of just moving parts.
Yeah. But the industrial hygienist, you're going to be out of pocket, right? You're going to pay $1,500.
I had an hour-long argument with an industrial hygienist that the carrier hired in Atlanta, and we were in this pool room, and I've got it recorded somewhere, but I can't use it because there's some NDA stuff that we ended up signing. But we were recording this conversation for use in case we needed to go to court. And I'm explaining to this guy why you can't just cut asbestos-containing drywall at a stud and keep going. I'm talking about how all the mud is over here, and there's all these different things, and I'm doing this against the wall. I'm looking at him, and I turn my head towards the wall, and there's a picture of a nude woman there, and I'm doing this right over her tits.
That's funny.
And I stopped. I looked at what I was doing. We cracked up for at least 5 minutes before we could continue that argument. That was fun.
Was an adjuster there during that time?
Adjuster was there, like 3 industrial hygienists. One of my PAs that was there with me. Just, that's my boss. What an idiot. Whatever it might be.
Hey, real quick, Matt, before you boot off, just because I remembered Remington was on the last time I had asked this, and I just figured I'd update. But I had another siding claim that I talked about, remember, and the adjusters, there was some damage on it, and the adjusters were saying, hey, this is, it's mechanical damage, or there was some other damage related, and we needed to kind of go further. Well, they had requested that an engineer come out, and I just read up on something on this. So should I have requested to get our own engineer, or should I have done it something different?
I know my opinion on this. Whenever the carrier has an engineer involved, I like to have my own. In fact, if I can get mine out there before theirs, it's usually better off. I haven't done that every time, and I'm pretty successful at working against the carrier's carrier engineer's report, because they're always filled with some interesting, not always, but most of the time filled with some interesting bullshit.
Yeah.
What do you think, Remington? Should you have an engineer involved if they do?
For me, yes, 100%. I mean, I have to. I have to. I can't go.
By the time it gets to an attorney,
yeah, I can't go into a gunfight with a knife. We're
you remember they had that pre-buyer's report that showed that there was no damage on the home previous, and then now there's these damages. So we did have that little bit of ammunition on our side.
Great. But I don't think there is a right or wrong answer as to should you get an engineering report before their engineer or after. I think in both scenarios, the outcome's going to potentially be different. And I say this by this. Yeah, I like having the first engineering report and saying X, Y, Z. But what does that do for the carrier? It allows the carrier's engineer to actually review and combat our engineering report, while on vice versa, our engineer gets to combat their engineering report if they're second. But I've had it work both ways. Well, they paid out the claim just right out the gate if I had the first engineering report, and they had it where they didn't pay until they saw my engineer combating their report. So again, I just think it's a case-by-case scenario. It matters who you're dealing with, what insurance company, what engineer, and so forth.
So that being said, let's say they come back right now and they go, hey, we're still not going to pay for it, right? What would be your suggested next steps? And should I hire an attorney, PA? What should I do from there?
I think you should definitely, I would ask this, or have the policyholder ask this, would an engineering report potentially change, the coverage decision? And I would have the homeowner ask that. But if that's not an option, I would certainly hire a public adjuster, or go the attorney route, one or the other, given the circumstances, no doubt. And they're going to need to get an engineer. So because they're not going to come off of that. They always love to say, well, my engineer said this, and we're standing behind what my engineer said. I mean, I see that just every day, pretty much.
Gives them the plausible deniability that they want. If you don't have someone of the same credentials and you can't poke holes in their engineer report sufficiently to show the carrier that they don't really have a reasonable basis, if they can't hide behind it any longer, then you don't need another engineer. But generally speaking, that's tough to do. So having your own engineer to say that this is a different opinion, it makes it much more difficult for them to hide behind that or use that as their basis for denial. So if you get to the point where they say, we don't care, no, then you'll probably need to go further. I am working on a how to deal with engineers course that we're going to put online. It should be our very first online course at NCI, different company. But once that's out, there's a lot there, but a lot of what I've done in the past involves combating the engineer report directly, but not everybody's going to be able to do that.
I mean, or should I just try your approach, Matt, first and go, hey, here's the thing, tell the homeowner, here's the thing, this is sudden, accidental, and direct physical loss, right? Regardless of whatever the damage is, I have insurance for my home. This is sudden, accidental, direct physical loss. So should I approach it that way?
I mean, if it's sudden and accidental and it's not excluded, then it doesn't matter. The policy is going to cover it one way or the other. I don't remember specifics about your claim. What kind of damage is it?
So it appears to be a type of wind damage. There's no actual indentation showing any hail or anything like that. It looks like the siding ended up coming loose and fluttering, and the wind had broken it in certain spots because there's no actual.
Okay. And you're worried that their engineer is going to say it's not wind, and they're going to probably cite some weather data, even though they're not meteorologists. And you're going to say, well, you're not going to say this, but ultimately they can't do that. They can't cite weather data and make a determination based off of weather data and their interpretation of it, because they're not meteorologists. And everything is going to change when it's on the property anyway. Wind speeds up when it is pushed between two buildings. If they're really close together, you're going to have a Bernoulli effect. Anywhere where it has to change directions, it's going to speed up. And anywhere it speeds up, it's going to have lower pressure, and the higher pressure behind or underneath the siding or in the voids between the siding pieces is going to push out. You're going to have plenty of reasons why wind could have caused this, even if the wind speeds on the report show too low. But they're going to go out on a limb and say, well, there wasn't enough wind speed on these dates. And that's all bullshit. All that's bullshit. It's complete garbage. But that's why having your own engineer is a good idea in a lot of cases. You might end up needing a PA in those cases to force them to acknowledge your engineer's report. But having your own engineer, whenever they do, if their engineer says no, probably a good move to get your own. Okay. If you think it's going to be contested, get your own first. Send in your report first is usually better off.
Okay. And James, because you asked for the policyholder to send in a correspondence and say, well, isn't direct physical loss or sudden and accidental direct physical loss, a covered peril under the policy, what would be the other peril or result of the siding being damaged other than wind? Like, what else could they come up with, in your opinion?
Settling, cracking, shifting materials,
But why would we ask?
improper installation.
Why would we ask if a direct physical loss is covered then? Does that make sense? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, it wouldn't be a sudden accident or physical loss if it was those things.
Right. So I guess, hey, when you get their engineering report, I think we should circle back on this. I want to see what it says.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's keep this going as episode 3. I want to see their engineering report, because it was vinyl siding and there was holes in the siding. And of course, we were alleging that it was hail damage from hailstones. They did a report and they came back, and the adjuster called me and he was like, well, we don't think it was hailstones. I was like, oh, okay. Well, what do you think it was? And he says, well, we think it was a lawnmower that kicked up stones and hit the side of the building. I was like, well, oh, great. Like, isn't that covered too? Like, because it is,
It would be.
like, yeah. It's, and they paid, I was like, well, fantastic.
People don't realize this, but if there's rocks being thrown at siding, the rocks are going to be behind the siding. You could probably find them if that's really what it is.
That is true.
No one looks for them.
And I also said, I remember in my email to him, I was like, do you realize that hail is it's called a hailstone? So this is just another stone. Yeah, I had fun with that.
That argument go over well? I'm curious.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun. But hey, when you James, when you get that engineering report, seriously, let's circle back around. I want to see it.
I like that plan. That actually might be a really good episode.
Yeah.
All right, I'm booting you.
Yeah,
I'm not going to stand up and actually make the kicking motions.
Hey, nice seeing you again, buddy.
Yeah, that's interesting. The for a lot of siding types, vinyl siding especially, the stones will be behind it. If it went through, it should still be there. So it'd be easy for you to prove or disprove it. Had to turn us down. We're more important than that person. Miss what was said. All good, I'm sure. We just told them how much of a dick you are to everybody that you meet. So what about what? Oh, it's Opie. What about
Opie.
Shadrach? The hell?
Hey, Opie, what do Matt and I look like today? He always says that we look like different people. Before I was a chub adjuster, I look like a chub.
I missed something. I don't know what he's saying there.
I have no idea.
Good question. All right, so I'm hoping this guy comes on. He just needs to click on the link. This is a really good question. We have carriers classifying abatement costs for work outside of the direct damage area as code and subject to ordinance and law sublimits. Probably not, but I do have some questions for him on that. So I asked him to come on. Hope he comes back. So IA might come back and say kills and paint, you'll be fine. I think he's talking about the asbestos cutting at the stud kind of shit. What do you think about American Family only paying for individual shingle repairs on non-repairable roof? There will be additional damage to surrounding shingles while doing a repair, but they won't cover it.
I'm going to have to say, I don't think Peaks is from Georgia, because this is something that we've been dealing with for half a decade. If this is new in your state, I'm sorry. The wave is coming. But am I wrong, Matt?
No, it's every claim, every single one. So there are some policies that would exclude consequential damages that are the result of the farmer's policy, for example. I'm starting to see policies start to mimic what's in that Farmer Smart Plan. The Farmer Smart Plan in the How We Pay for a Law section says we will not pay for consequential damages that are a result of a condition that is excluded against in Section 1 causes of loss or damage, or excluded causes of loss or damage. And where they're going with that is wear and tear. So if the cause of loss to the surrounding materials, if the damage to the surrounding materials from that repair is a result of a condition of wear and tear, if it is because the shingles are old that they're getting damaged as a result of that repair, then it wouldn't be covered in that policy. I don't see many policies with that language. I don't know if the American Family Policy has that language that you're dealing with. But even with farmers with that language, the goal was to determine whether or not the surrounding damages, the damages that were caused during the repair, could have been attributed to age, or if it would have happened regardless of. So you would do a but-for argument. How's that work, Remington?
Yeah, I'm with you. I love it.
You weren't paying attention.
Yes, I was. I was the whole time.
How do you do a but-for argument?
But for, okay, so if your mom makes lasagna, but for your mom making lasagna, you wouldn't have an overflowing toilet. We all know the but for argument here. Okay,
so
no,
the goal here would be if not but for the age of the shingles, the roof would not have been damaged by the repairs. That's if you can't say that that's true, then age wouldn't have been an issue. Would the damage have occurred if not but for the age of the surrounding material? So even with that language from that policy, it wouldn't matter. So the surrounding materials, though, are part of direct physical loss. For most courts of law, in fact, every single one that I've looked into, every district, they define direct physical loss as everything that happens in that same chain of events that's unbroken, starting off with the proximate cause. So if the proximate cause of loss is hail or wind or whatever it is that damage that one shingle, the repairs of that are part of that same chain of events. You would not have made those repairs if not but for the wind. And then the damage to the surrounding shingles would not have happened if not but for the repairs. So all along that chain all starts with the wind or the hail. So unless you have some weird language similar to that Farmer Smart Plan language in that policy, they should be paying for it.
In peaks, I think I can find in 99% of policies where the insurance carrier owes for a proper repair. All right.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm gonna pull a little trick out of my back pocket that I found from a buddy named Matt Mulholland, and that is ask them for their contractor of their choice to meet you at the property, and you will be filming them attempting the repair. See how that goes. I've done that before, and the track record for percentage of success is actually better than I thought it would be. And I know Matt has been very successful on that exact scenario as well.
I've had 100% success doing that.
100% success. So
I've only had one roof. I've only been on one roof where we said it wasn't repairable and that proper repairs could not be made. And I invited them to send out their own roofer, and that roofer actually did a fantastic job and did not damage the surrounding materials very much. But because it was a minute amount that they did get damaged, we still ended up winning that one. And we've had a lot of fights, and some of them have ended up in Remington's hands, to be fair. But we still ended up winning those. We've had 100% success if we got the carrier to send out their own roofer, because their own roofer, it doesn't matter who they send out. If it's not repairable, no, there's no one that can repair it. That's the whole point. So anyway.
And just one, Matt took just because him asking for their contractor to meet out and do the repair, and they videoed it, it took pretty much a claim that was about $125,000 to $2 million because of that. And I always give you credit for that one, Matt. That was good.
That was a good one. That one made all that roof snake bullshit come to light too.
Yep.
Someone said, "What's up, James?" Somebody else is just talking to somebody else in our comments.
Well, I think James was because he was on the video with us.
Oh, he was on the video. A+ roofing. I know a lot of A+ roofings. At some point, people have to realize that before you name your roofing company, you should probably see if there's like 10 other companies with the exact same name.
I might, like, if I think about it, if I see B- roofing, I might be like, I want to just see what these guys are about. You know?
What's up with this company? Maybe they're realistic. They are not getting more business because of that.
No,
but maybe A++.
Guys,
you know?
I'm just joking out there. Just joking.
Additional pluses. So I have this crazy house. Been to a few of those. So the snow came and damaged the metal roof. Basically, the porch pulled the back wall off. The porch pulled the back wall off and filled the back wall with water, including the fuse box. Immediately after the rains came and flooded the house, 6 inches of water, no flood insurance, and FEMA declined because they never left the house. So doing this claim myself because PA never called her. You got a collapse. Sounds like a collapse.
Yeah, I would agree to that as well. I
Porch-
don't know enough about. I mean, for it to say flood, I'm trying to think. Is this during the hurricane? And
So So flood is from groundwater. Rainwater is not groundwater until it's on the ground. If it's coming in from a backflow along the ground, then it's groundwater and it's water and it might be excluded. And you'd have to have flood insurance. The terminology of my house flooded doesn't necessarily mean that a flood has occurred in your house. I've had insurance companies deny claims just because someone said my house flooded and it was a pipe burst. And they've literally denied it and say, we don't cover flood. Isn't that bullshit?
that just shows you how just uneducated or just information that they actually don't have, these adjusters. And I'm not saying they're uneducated as in schooling. I'm talking about from their own insurance company.
Yeah.
That's their employer. That's insane. That's insane.
It's stupid. Either that or their manager told them, well, we don't cover flood, and they didn't think twice about it and just went for it. But it's some bullshit. So unless this water, if this porch, I'm assuming this porch is above grade level, and you got the house, you got a porch on the side, here's the ground. If the porch falls away and it pulls this part of the house with it, then you've got a partial collapse. If it fell completely off, then you've got a full collapse. But usually there's some collapse language in the policy that might end up being part of that. Either way, even if collapse isn't covered in that policy, the rainwater getting into that as an ensuing loss probably is. You've probably got a decent claim. If the wall was pulled away and it is no longer standing properly, or you got a lot there. It's all going to tie to a collapse. You really probably do need a PA or an attorney involved, because there's going to be ALE and other things as well. This is not just going to be property damage.
Hey, Matt, hear me out on this. Maybe it's a situation where this is a beach house and there was, one of the hurricanes in the last couple of years, and the waters came in and they were, the tide rose 9 feet and took the porch out, which was the fasteners were connected to the back of the house. I'm just trying to see out the way the flood could actually affect this scenario.
So she goes on to say that 8 hours later, it flooded that area of the county. So there was an actual flood involved. And if that porch was on grade, if it was on level with the ground and it pulled that away a little bit, I have no PAs in this area. It's in Kentucky. I know a lot of PAs that were Kentucky. I don't know if they're in that area, but I know a really good one.
You need to send Cher a direct message with some PAs.
Yeah, there's a PA that I talk to constantly. I'd hire him in a heartbeat. I tried to many times. He's fantastic. His name is Noble McCulley. Freaking genius. Puts me to shame. Love that guy. And he works Kentucky, and this might be, if you will put my email address in the comments. If you will send me an email and remind me that I need to send you this guy's contact information, I'll send it over to you. Listen to this bull.com. All right. So my email address is in the comments. Shoot me an email. Howard is in the wings from that one question. I'm going to go back to it and pull it back up. And then Howard's about to come in. You look very different from your photo. How old is that picture? I think you're muted.
Yeah, it's a few years old.
A few years, yeah.
Howard, you look fine, buddy. You're looking good, man.
I'm not saying that you look really old or anything.
Don't listen to him.
I'm just a dick. It's fine. It's fine. Howard, this is a good question. Has this happened to you?
Yeah, it's actually 2 points I want to make. This is the question is one, and then one to respond to something you said a little bit earlier about cutting asbestos containing drywall and
Love
trying
it.
to
Yeah.
do a repair. But let's go with this. Let's go with this one here. There's a simple loss. Pipe under the sink let go, frozen pipe. Coverage was extended. There's a lot of humidity in the house, which required the first floor to be gutted. And the carrier is saying that the walls above what would be, let's say, a flood cut, are code, and then everything on the flood cut below would be part of direct damage.
Okay.
And of course, I'm arguing that the whole thing should be direct damage, but for, to use your phrase from a few moments ago, but for not the broken pipe, we wouldn't be doing any of this. And so it's still in discussion, but it's a common occurrence. What's becoming common here in New England, I'm based in Massachusetts, that the carriers are going with direct physical components that are damaged, whatever it is, smoke, fire, water. That's under the coverage A, and anything that's beyond that area becomes part of code. And we're trying to argue against it.
All right. So for everybody's sake here, ordinance and law coverage, there's a few different types of ordinance and law coverage, but for the most part, ordinance and law covers the increased cost from enforcement of an ordinance or a law. So this would be something that is above and beyond the normal course of construction. So is it an increased cost over the normal course of construction when asbestos is involved? No, it probably isn't. If they forced you to gut every single room because they found out there was asbestos in this one room that's affected, and you wouldn't normally even be manipulating those walls, then that would be an increased cost that would fall under the ordinance and law. But this is the directly damaged room, and in order to make proper repairs, you're going to have to put you have to dry it and everything. So the flood cuts are already done. Probably should have been an abatement company doing that. Now you've got asbestos fibers throughout the house, most likely because this is a friable material. And the company that was doing the flood cut most likely didn't do any abatement. They just cut it open. AC units probably still blowing everywhere. Whatever it might have been, that's usually what occurs. So you might end up definitely want to get an industrial hygienist to write a protocol on exactly what to do and test the entire house for asbestos fibers everywhere.
Yeah, I've had that scenario. I've actually had that scenario several years ago where the mitigation company didn't recognize that the mud was hot and cut right through it and put the air movers in and the dehues in and blew it throughout the whole house.
Yeah.
It turned into a cluster. It was a
miserable
claim. Fortunately, in this one, in Massachusetts, I imagine around the country, for most states anyway, we test before we touch.
You're supposed to, but very few people actually do it. So that if that actually happened, that's great. Did the flood cuts get done?
No. What's that?
Did they actually flood cut it then?
No.
Okay.
What the carrier wants to say is that we'll pay for the costs of a flood cut and the repairs resulting from a flood cut, but everything beyond that is going to be code related to taking the rest of the wall off. And
here's what I recommend. Ordinance and law should not be part of this. It is part of direct physical loss. This is all has to do with repairability standards, and the carrier always owes to repair properly, right, Rem? 100%.
I agree. Let me show you some. Let me see if I can get this correct. And I was trying to share some some O&L language, but for some reason it's just not wanting to cooperate. Yeah. But I had a policy that shown up, and let me just read it to you real quick here. It says, ordinance law, we will pay up to the limit shown in the deck page for ordinance law coverage for the increased costs necessary to meet any applicable enforcement or ordinance or law. Number one, regulating the construction, use, or repair. So
but it's increased costs, and that word increase is really the key term there. So, and otherwise everything would be under ordinance and law. And that's really where they're trying to go with a lot of states. So they,
You know what? That is a great way to separate that, Matt. That is a
everything.
great way. Because I was
So-
just trying to play devil's advocate here because I read something yesterday and I just breezed through it. And I thought this might be like a little devil's advocate policy language, but you're exactly right. Increased cost for the necessary to meet the ordinance law.
it has to be an increase over your normal course of construction, and it has to be caused by an enforcement. So a lot of people are trying to get away with this. Everything's enforced. No, it has to be an enforcement, an ordinance that is going to force you to do something you normally wouldn't have to do. And now there's an increased cost as a result. You do have to deal with abatement and fully and properly in a house that was insured that has asbestos on the walls. That isn't an increased cost. There isn't a building official forcing you to do something completely outside the normal for this situation. This is not an ordinance of law situation, but they are trying to put everything under ordinance of law they can. And we've allowed this issue to happen over the years. We've put ourselves in this pickle by using ordinance and law to make our arguments easier. If I can get flashings paid for because they have ordinance and law coverage, I have often told an adjuster, listen, just they have ordinance and law. Why don't you put it under that? I'm part of the problem. I caused this too. Now the carriers are thinking that they have to pay for, they only have to pay for flashing if there's ordinance and law. And now the policies have less ordinance and law available. If any, they're being written out of policies. And so now they're trying to put as many things under that coverage as they can because everybody's got a skewed perception about what it's supposed to actually cover. So if it's not an increased cost caused by an enforcement of a building official, then they can't put it under ordinance and law. This is the normal course of construction. If an industrial hygienist puts it in a protocol, that is the normal course of construction. Protocol for industrial hygienists is not an ordinance. It's not a law. It's not a city official enforcing something. It's just how you're supposed to make repairs to this. This is normal course of construction for it. But let's talk about this. If you are told that you can make flood cut and then repair just that area, how much would it cost to actually do that and leave the asbestos containing material behind? In order to actually perform those duties, the drywall remover would have to be doing all this under containment, and the installer would also have to do all of this under containment. And then they'd have to verify through testing before and after that there's no asbestos containing material or fibers in the air. They'd have to do air testing. They'd have to do a lot of different things. Under containment, a drywall installer that's certified to deal with asbestos wearing full PPE is crazy expensive. The cost to repair will be higher than the cost to replace all the walls anyway. So there is you could go down that road and actually build out an estimate to show them that the cost of repairs doing it their way will cost more. And that could end up working out in your favor. But the idea that this should be under ordinance and law is asinine. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. It ties into that story you were telling about trying to, as you were playing with the photograph on the wall. Had a claim last year where the carrier did just that. The walls were hot. The carrier said, "Nope, you can do a flood cut with asbestos walls, and you can fix them." And I said, "No way in hell. That's just never going to happen here." And from a company, it was Chubb, and I never expected that position to be taken by Chubb. And maybe a local mutual carrier, but not Chubb.
I have some industrial hygienists that are hired by carriers in Georgia that have put in writing that you can cut at a stud and do all these things. And a lot of times, just like engineering firms, these industrial hygienists that are hired by the carriers, they're attempting to save their client money. Which, okay, that's fine. That's if that's the goal, then this is what can be done. But they never say, as they're doing all this, that it should be done under containment. They're implying it by not saying that you can take the containment down after the abatement is done. They're just saying, then you can do this. And they say to put brightly colored paint over the asbestos containing drywall that's left behind. and put new drywall up on the same stud, which, by the way, when you put fasteners in that same stud, it's vibrating it. It's causing a friable issue. But let's say that brightly colored paint is some kind of an encapsulant, which it isn't, but let's say it is. You put that on there, and then they say that you can put new mud on there and then sand it down, and you'll know when to stop sanding when you see the brightly colored paint. That's a ridiculous thing. The repair would end up having a bump because you have to go into the existing mud on the left behind drywall side in order to have a smooth surface. So now you're asking for them to have a repair with drywall where there would be a visible change from the old material to the new material, unless you skim coat the entire set of new and old in order to make it a one smooth surface again. The cost to repair will be so astronomical by the time you're really done. It won't make any sense to do so unless you're talking about a lot of square foot of one long ass hallway.
So I brought up the point with the Chubb adjuster and said, fine, if you want to do that. And I checked with the state. Our Department of Environmental Protection said, yes, you can do it. There's nothing prohibiting it. So you can do it. You just need the right people to do it. Fine. So I suggested to the Chubb adjuster, is this really the road you want to go down? You know what you're creating here. You're creating an environment, not just in this house, but for every house that we go into from this point forward, where when I'm going to test a house before I cut into the materials, I'm going to have to test high, 2 feet over low, 2 feet over high again, and 2 feet over low. Because I don't know if there's been a flood cut or a patch over here or a patch over there.
That's an excellent argument.
Yeah.
So now at $50 a test, or whatever the cost is up here, I've just Swiss cheesed at 10
No one's
foot
going to
wall
do
10
that. No
times.
one's going to even know to do. That's a really good argument. Now you're okay. So the argument can be made, and it'll tie to what you just said. The argument can be made that if you're going to prescribe repairs on how to perform it, then it doesn't make sense to do repairs in such a way that it is dangerous for the occupants of the home. If you are going to do it in such a way that endangers the occupants, then you shouldn't do it that way. Good rule of thumb. And if you are doing this, based on what you just said, you're right. You are putting the future residents or this resident in a position where they are unaware that some of the drywall is hot, but some of it isn't. And if they test the wrong areas, they might show that it's not hot and perform repairs on the entire wall. That's a solid point. Well done. Good argument. That's better than what I came up with.
Keep it up, Howard. Keep it up, man. I love it.
Fighting the fight. We're so I enjoy, your Facebook posts and the different groups that I belong to here. Here in the Northeast, we're seeing an influx of what I call the TV policies. Those that are advertising heavily, and usually with some fancy logo or animal. But for the most part, we're still full of ISO style policies. So it's pretty standard. We're not running into what you guys are running into with down south.
I can't remember the last time I saw a real ISO policy, or at least one that was only a short or a small amount of variation.
Yeah, no, they're still prominent up here. But I do see it, as you mentioned earlier, it's traveling. The repair by shingle is traveling. I swear there's got to be a PLRB conference going on somewhere where they're all in the same room saying, hey, let's do this together. And they're just going countrywide.
It's crazy. All of this stuff that everybody is starting to come across in a lot of states, we've been dealing with it in Georgia for some time because Georgia we have nothing to protect the consumer. So they can get away with it here, and they're trying things out here. And then they're moving it on from there. So it's a good state. A lot of people say what happens in Florida will happen everywhere. I disagree. It's the low leverage states that you want to look at. What are they doing there? They're going to try to do that in the high leverage states somehow, some way next. And they're going to try to put themselves in a position where they can. So that's a good point. All right, Howard, I appreciate you being on.
Thanks,
good question.
buddy. Good
meeting you. Take care.
Take care.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, we just got a lot going on. That was a great question.
He knows what he's talking about. I love it. I love it.
It's a good argument. He had a great argument. Oh, we already did that one. Where am I at? Grant Cardone and Steven Spielberg.
I asked him.
Oh, that's who we look like.
Yeah, that's what I said. I said, who we look like.
I see it. I see it. I'm Steven Spielberg, in case you didn't know. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. That's pretty funny.
Grant Cardone.
Cardone. Man.
I've actually heard that before. That's funny.
Have you? That you look like Grant Cardone?
Somebody came up and was like, you look like that motivational speaker guy. I was like, well, I have no idea who that is. Who? And then I believe that that's what they said was that Carbone dude.
I like this question for you, Remington. If you live in a matching state, does insurance have to cover the other faces due to fading?
I argue that they do. Just like let's just go back to vinyl siding. We've been talking about it. If it doesn't match, then I always argue that the appearance and now the property is affected. But it's a harder argument than if the shingle is discontinued or the tile's discontinued or the siding's discontinued or you can't get matching cabinets because they're customized. Those are a lot better arguments. But I can tell you, no doubt in Florida, I've had carriers pay for all of the siding or an entire roof just because the appearance doesn't look to be matching.
So does the fact that it's a matching state matter that much, though?
I mean,
what does that really mean? Let me ask you, what does that actually mean?
I'm telling
something's a matching state or not.
When the claim ends up in our hands, it truly does matter, in my opinion, because I can't tell you how many times, in Florida, a lot of jurisdictions, especially in like Southwest, they force you to go to our non-binding arbitration. Mm-hmm. So you just present your case to an arbitrator who's typically an ex-judge or something of that effect. And I can't tell you, probably every case I bring up the matching statute. So to me, it certainly does help. And I know the argument in some other states that don't have matching. Well, the policy says that it's not excluded. It doesn't say that matching's excluded. Right.
Right.
But
it doesn't matter,
which is a good argument too. But having that matching statute, I flex the legal muscle using that statute in Florida a lot.
So Georgia doesn't have a statute that says anything about matching. It doesn't have anything in the regulations. And I don't know if there's any case law that says we're not a matching state. But because we don't have any of that, maybe we do. You would know better than me. Is there a case law that says we're not a matching state?
It's not a case law that necessarily says that we're not a matching state. But here's the difference is that any policyholder can actually add a provision, an endorsement to their policy that makes their policy a matching policy. If they decline to have that, which 99% of policyholders in the state of Georgia decline to have that provision in their policy, that's what gives the insurance carriers leverage and arguments to say that it actually is not matching.
So if the carrier doesn't offer an endorsement that provides matching, then it would be a matching policy. Otherwise, it'd have to be excluded specifically.
Then they're going to go back to, well, no, this policy only covers direct physical loss, sudden and accidental direct physical loss. I'm with you. I'm with you, Matt. I truly am. I'm letting you know the arguments that I hear every single day.
Sure. No, I realize the reality versus the perfect world scenarios. And we talk about both of these pretty often. Perfect world and the way the policy is supposed to be written, it's all very semantic driven. It needs to be black and white. And often reality gets in the way. And unless you want to take everything to court, you're going to be playing with some gray terms as a result. So reality versus idealism, I guess. But this question is a little bit different. So I like the way that he posed this. If you live in a matching state, does insurance have to cover the other facets due to fading? So he's saying basically, let's say it's siding instead of a roof, just to make it a little bit easier in your head. You have a north, south, east, and west. They're paying for one elevation to be replaced, but the other elevations are faded, and it's a matching state. Do they owe for the other elevations?
My answer is I would argue yes. And how about this? When, let's just say in Florida, and I'm not trying to get roofs. I'm trying to make this a different argument. A lot of times the flashing is behind the stucco. Okay. So when you replace the roof system, you're damaging that stucco. That stucco needs to be, painted and dashed and so forth. Well, that's going to look different compared to the other portion of the stucco that's 20 years old. I've had insurance carriers pay for stuccoing, repainting the entire house because of the matching statute. Some of them really want to fight it. Some of them pay it. So I think it's a good, and I think that kind of falls with Scott's, I always say fact pattern because I'm an attorney, so I need to come up with something different. But scenario that he's presenting.
You can keep saying fact pattern. We won't blame you.
There you go.
It's fine. So, I mean, does a line of sight state matter? If it's a line of sight, is there really a difference between matching and line of sight?
I think that's when you come, the difference is like Scott's where there's a fading and there's a noticeable difference in the two products versus matching, which you can certainly put it towards, well, this product is discontinued, right? I think there's a good little difference between line of sight and matching, if you will. But now that you said that, I'm using line of sight in my matching arguments.
I mean, it's almost the same thing. It might as well just be matching.
Yeah, right.
I mean, there's Stephen Hadi, I don't know how to say his last name, put out a video once. He's another PA. And he's like, I'm standing here and I see only this front. And then if I go to the side, I can see both the front and the side. So if I have to replace both of those as a line of sight, that's great. But what if I then walk to this back corner of the house and now I see this side that I just replaced in the back side? Now I have line of sight of both of these. At some point, where does the line of sight matter? Is it only from the street? Is that what line of sight matters? Because there's no terminology when they say line of sight and where you're supposed to stand for the line of sight to matter.
And
so
I think
line
it's
of sight
anywhere
should be
around the house.
Unless there's a completely hidden wall, then you wouldn't necessarily have to replace that, I guess, ever. Opie's just being weird there. We went with A+. He's justifying because I've made fun of his company name. I'm a dick, guys. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
Do not take them literally, okay?
Way back when phone books were relevant.
That's true.
You used to be able, you could have done with AAA roofing would have made sense for that kind of a thing. Frank Dalton is in the wings. He thinks that I'm just going to pull him on just because he's in the wings. He doesn't realize that I'm being a dick today. I don't know if I want to pull him on, but his hair looks fantastic. So I want people to see it.
I want to.
What up?
What's going on, man?
I just wanted to springboard on Remington's thing because I do the same thing daily. Every line of sight argument ends up in matching and vice versa. Just some peripherals from carrier, like an area that if someone was trying to learn a good breaking point, the way at least the carrier is going to fight you. Like if you're on a house and it's just a rectangle and you're at the front elevation and you can go to the corner, then both those elevations would tie in. But when you start to get like breaks with a stone facade or a chimney, that's where you would see the line of sight deviate or become kind of like a flood argument where the one becomes primary and the other one is not. Also like doorway thresholds for tile, stuff like that. So that was just my 2 cents on line of sight and
I love
matching and the differences there.
Tara is destroying your kids somewhere in the background. We can hear them. Probably some children being beaten. We don't even know.
But you've met Reagan before, so yeah.
Well, she might deserve it. Who knows?
If you guys don't know Frank, he's up for Public Adjuster of the Year. Win the Storm.
Somehow Frank is not going to be on the PA panel at Win the Storm, though. He's got a different PA there.
Well,
Okay.
trying to let some of my guys that they're out there killing it every year
I mean,
get out there and get known. So
That's a team
Tony's going to be
player,
up.
man.
that's a team player. So it means that Coastal Claims is the PA of the year, not just Frank Dalton.
That is true.
That's the idea.
There you go. Hey, Michael
Frank-
Jordan's got to pass it off to, Scottie Pippen every once in a while.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Everybody saw his hair. It's terrible. All right, I'm kicking him.
I love that guy. He
Yeah,
had the
does.
same thoughts I did.
Need them shirts for sale soon, man. I do. I'm working on it. I'm working on a marketplace for listentothisbull.com. We will have some shirts with the bull heads and some other fun things. I got a shirt coming out that says "I deal with bull." It'll be good. We people can jump on that. Anything to help support the channel. It takes quite a bit of money to buy all the equipment and everything necessary to run a lot of this stuff and to maintain all that. And honestly, we're just doing it in our spare time. And none of us got any of it. So, it'd be great to be able to hire a full-time editor. I haven't had a video coming out in a while. So yeah, we're looking to get that done so that we can have some extra funds. There's also a Patreon account, patreon.com/L2TB. That's L, the number 2TB. Listen to this bull. Does that make sense? L2TB, that's the backslash for Patreon. I'll probably post it in the comments now that I've said it. But if you wanted to be a Patreon, there's a ability for you to jump on with us and do some live group sessions. If you wanted to get like an upper echelon of Patreon, you could have one-on-one sessions with us as well and get some consulting out of us for helping us pay for this channel. That'd be cool too. All right, we're way over time, so I'm gonna see if there's one last good question.
Conrad, nice seeing you, buddy.
It's not construction, use of repairs, demolition of damages. I wish it was easier to get carriers to comprehend and agree with proper construction practice. It's almost as if those adjusters are contractors or something. Definitely need some bullshit shirts. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Hey, Conrad, if you got yourself a #bullshit tattoo, I'd let you be a Patreon for free. Don't forget the orange marking paint to tell them to stop sanding. I already talked about that. Here's a big question. Do you see any possible legal? This will be our last question, guys, and we're gonna have to cut it off. There's a ton left, but we're an hour and 12 into our 1 hour long show. Do you see any possible legal repercussion issues of a contractor making a frequently asked question type of document for a homeowner to learn from that goes over certain things a reputable contractor has to follow when doing repairs? This is a lawyer question all day.
Yeah, just looking at your question from the outside without seeing what your FAQs are going to be, I would say no. I mean, I think it's fantastic that you're, providing this information to a homeowner. You just stay in your lane. I mean, we all know the upper rules, so stay in your lane when it comes to that. If it's questions about code upgrades, I mean, that's your bread and butter as a contractor. Hey, I got to do this. This is code. It's mandatory for me to take these steps to do a proper repair. And I brought that up because I know that you kind of referenced it in quotes in your question, but as long as you stay in your lane, like seriously, I think that's fantastic. Handing out a pamphlet of that, nature, just puts you above some of the other, contractors out there. So, I would have an attorney review it though, just in case. We all know that insurance companies are looking for contractors, to do things they're not supposed to, as well as public adjusters, as well as attorneys. So
I think that the premise that you have here seems really great. Actually, I love the idea. There are a lot of contractors that go over the line when they start giving advice on how to deal with an insurance carrier. You might be acting as a PA, you might be acting as an attorney in your state. You need to talk to an attorney in your state about this kind of a thing. But boilerplate letters that you give to the homeowner for them to send in where it talks about their policy and stuff, you better believe the insurance companies are keeping copies of those. And they know that when this roofer is involved, suddenly all the homeowners have the exact same email, the exact same letter on it. I think it's pretty obvious sometimes when it's coming from the contractor. So be careful about that kind of stuff. I'm not an attorney, but I think Remington would agree with me. What do you think, Remington? Look, I'm looking the right direction. I look like I'm looking at you.
I agree. That's what I was trying to explain. You guys stay in your lane.
That right? Yeah. So
Let an attorney look at it, man. Hey, send it to me. I'll take a look at it.
Yeah. There you go. There you go. In under 2 hours, he became 0.01% smarter.
You know what? That is success, baby. That is success. As long as you didn't walk away from that saying, you know what the hell was I listening to?
I want to quote that. I'm going to put that on our website.
Yeah.
Watching this show makes you 0.01% smarter for every 2 hours you partake.
So Matt, how many, what is that? Like a year of episodes? That's 52 of these that,
Sure.
I mean, shoot, you're almost half a percentage smarter after 1 year.
It'd be more than half. It'd be 0.52.
Well, yeah. Hey,
yeah.
If you round up, you're at 1. So.
Is that, when you say smarter, is this just more knowledge, or is this increase your IQ 0.01%? Because that would be impressive. I would watch the show every day.
I think it's IQ, actually.
I'm going with IQ. Clearly, we definitely increase people's IQ by talking about bullshit.
Yep. Love it.
All right. All right. I think that's it, guys. There's a ton of comments left. I really appreciate you guys. He's actually going to get that tattoo. I really appreciate you guys commenting on here, but we are over time. Check us out next week, Tuesday at 6 p.m. I may or may not be at the Windstorm Conference. It depends on how things go with a home sale that I'm going through at the moment. But if I am there, then my guest will be live. Otherwise, we will have Tony Giulio. I love his last name. Giulio. It sounds so romantic. No homo. It's okay if I say something and I say no homo, then everybody understands that I'm not being homosexual myself, right? What if I say no homo? Is that how that works? I think that's how that works.
Hey man, you just be you, buddy.
I'm gonna drink my.
You're talking, but next
seltzer.
week. You're talking about next week. Next week, you're talking about 2 weeks from now or 3.
No,
weeks.
next week. Next week. Tony Giulio.
Well, Win the Storm's not till
Win the Storm.
Yeah.
Did I say Win the Storm?
You did.
The Windstorm Conference.
Oh, well, I might have construed that wrong. That's right. On me.
Win the Storm is February 14th. The Windstorm Conference starts next Monday through Wednesday. I assume Tony's going to be there, and I'll just have him, right next to me on the video, and then Remington could be over there anyway. But hopefully, because it's a lot more fun when they're in person.
Hey, I want to say something real quick. Eric Rhodes, you were responding by YouTube, so I couldn't find you on the Facebook. So please do me a favor and just send me a message asking for that PA recommendation to Facebook, and I can certainly do that.
Yeah. I don't need any of this. So next week, Tuesday at 6 p.m. Either way, join us for Tony Giulio. Our guest tonight, Holly Soffer, that was unable to make it due to illness. She will be on the following week. We've been able to find some time in there for her. And otherwise, check out the listentoThisBull.com website. There will be a marketplace on there in the coming week with some apparel that you can purchase and help support the channel. You can check out the patreon.com and in order to help support the channel. And I am going to, you wrote that L2TB thing in the private comments, Remington.
I know. I noticed I did that.
That's the Patreon right there. L2TB with the number 2 and the letter T, L2TB. So patreon.com/L2TB. That's our Patreon. You can help support the channel just by donating through there. Or you can join one of our Patreon groups and get some added benefit as one of our Patreons. Help support the channel so we can do a lot more of this and possibly get another editor on staff so that we can have some of those Listen to This Bull videos that we used to do all the time start coming back out again, because I have so much content just ready to be edited and no time to do it in. It's going to be great. Anything left for you, Remington?
No, next week I'm going to be wearing my Listen to This Bull shirt during the podcast. So I want everybody to see what we're dealing with, because these things are pretty cool.
Do you have that disclaimer handy that we put up earlier?
Handy right now?
Yeah, can you pull it up on your computer? We actually need to, while we're closing this down, I want you to read it out loud, and we're going to use that audio clip for the podcast on future intros for the podcast.
I am trying to find it. I had about 300 emails today. All content and substance, whether expressed or implied by any and all individuals on Listen to This Bull, are merely opinions, thoughts, ideas, and experiences. No statement made by Listen to This Bull, LLC, or any other participant shall be considered legal advice, public adjusting advice, or specific claim advice. Use all substance and writings at your own risk, without Listen to This Bull being held liable for any adverse results. If you need advice for your specific claim, contact a public adjuster. If you need legal advice, contact an attorney.
Well, duh.
There we go.
There we go. All right. I did not mean to hit that button. All right, guys. We'll see you next Tuesday. See you later.